Today's lesson is on John James Audubon, and we're going to be drawing some birds with some realistic detail like he did. He was born in 1785 in Haiti, which is a little tiny island off the coast of Florida, quite off the coast actually. But he became famous when he finally moved to the United States. He went and spent a little bit of time in France and then moved to the United States to work on his father's farm. But instead of working on the farm, he was fascinated with birds. So he went out and drew and sketched them. He actually drew and sketched every single bird in the United States, which is amazing. Can you imagine traveling to every state and drawing realistically every bird? He was just so fascinated with the birds. Here's one. This is right here. This is the Louisiana herring. Now this bird lives near the water. Sometimes he would trudge through the swamps so that he could sketch and draw. I know. So he could sketch and draw the birds. And he actually put little identifying bands on the bird. It's called banding. He used to put these little metal clamps on a bird because he wanted to know if the birds came back, if it was the same bird. So he really studied their habitats, studied their environments they lived in, and he drew the birds with exact, precise, realistic detail that people now use these drawings to help identify birds. There was even a group of a bird society named after him. It was called the Audubon Bird Society. You may have heard of it. You may have seen his artwork in catalogs, in clocks. I even have a clock that is made by Audubon and all the birds on the clock. And every hour the bird does a call, a different bird call. But his birds became very, very popular. So we're going to kind of act like Audubon today and study some bird pictures and draw some realistic details of birds. Are you ready to begin?
Yes.
Great. Today I have with me 2 second grade classes, and we're taping live. So we're going to begin now because they're all very excited about their sketch. So the bird that we're going to actually make is called a robin. Have you ever heard of a robin before?
Yes.
This comes from the Wisconsin state stamp here. And this is a robin, and I chose this because it's just a very simple beginning bird. And if you look here, you can actually, if you take the basic shape, you can just by changing the colors, make it your own bird. Because what I like to do in my art class is for you not to just exactly copy what I do, but then when you're coloring it, designing it, you can turn it into your own bird. I like you to try and be as creative as you can. So let's go ahead and begin. But our model for the bird, because we always use a source when we're drawing things, either it's from life like Audubon did, sitting in the swamp drawing the birds, or sitting in a high mountain drawing the birds, or we use photographs. So let's go ahead and begin. We're going to start off by visualizing this bird. Now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to have this bird take up most of your page. And look, the bird is on if we do it like this, it's a diagonal line if we look at the bird line here. So if I'm going from side to side, the bird is at a diagonal. See how my pen is diagonal? So I want you to visualize on your paper, say my head is going to be here, and then diagonally down, this will be the tail. I want you to take up that whole page. I want the subject of this painting to be a bird. Audubon, when he painted his birds, he drew them life size. That means he drew them exactly the same size on his paper. So if the bird was small, he'd make a small bird. If the bird was really big, he'd have to get a really big paper. But I want you to take up your whole paper, whatever paper we're using. That way we don't have a bird this big on our giant paper. Okay, so we're going to visualize head, tail, okay? So we need to leave a little bit of room for the negative space at the top. So drop down about 2 fingers from your top, and let's start off just with the eye. Now look, if this is the middle of our page, I'm coming a little bit over from the middle. So I'm jumping over, and I'm going to do just a circle. Now, if you're looking at the size of my fingernail, this is actually the circle of the bird. The eye is actually about the size of the vegetable, a pea. So if you've eaten green peas, this is as big as what I just drew. So you can have an idea of scale. And the next step, I'm going to put a ring around this. This is going to be like the dark of his eye. If we draw very, very, very closely to this, and it's going to look like a little donut. There I go. I got a little donut. Now the circle in the center is actually the pupil, and because this bird has a really dark eye, the pupil and the iris. So I'm going to color it in, but I'm leaving a very tiny speck of white showing, which this will give a reflection. So let me show you up close. I've colored it in, but I left a tiny speck of white, and that's the light reflection. Now around here, what I'm going to do is from here, I'm going to come out, jump just a little bit, and I'm going to come out. It's going to be wider than a finger, just a little bit wider than a finger, with a slightly curved line. It's not an exact straight line, it's slightly curved. And from here, what I'm going to do, it's kind of like, it's going to be like a banana shape. I'm going to touch the end, I'm going to go up and then back to the beak. This is going to form the top beak, so watch, real slow. I go up like a banana, and then I come back down real skinny. It's important to keep those points tight right there. This is forming the top beak. Let me bring it up close so you can see it. It's like a banana. And then the bottom beak, I'm going to do a backwards letter C first, pretty small, a backwards letter C. Let me show you up close so you can see it. And then I'm going to bring this backwards letter C up and end at that tiny point. The bird's beak, for the most part, most of them have little tiny points. Some are sharper, some are hooked, curved. This one seems to be pretty straight. This is a backwards letter C for the bottom beak, and then this line just connects to a tiny point. Now, if we put a guideline above our head, jumping not very far, under a finger, just give a straight line at the top here, one little tiny line. So directly above the head, jump up. It's probably almost the width of your pinky finger, because you guys have tiny fingers. My kids today are second grade kids, and their second grade in our country is, we're in the United States, and so second grade is, if they're in kindergarten, they're 5 years old, 6 years old, first grade, second grade is 7, and sometimes they turn 8 by the end of the school year. So here we go. I'm going to round. Now I'm going to connect down and slowly go into the beak. I didn't touch, notice here, did I? I didn't touch the end. I slowly went around, and then I went diagonally to the beak to touch. Now we're going to come back around the head. If you take the eyeball where it ends and just bring it over, I'm going around and I'm stopping where the eyeball ends. See my line here? And if you mess up, just redraw the line right on top. You can always put a branch, a leaf, something over it. Make it a feather, something later. But don't worry about your mistakes right now. Underneath the eyeball, I'm going to be making a slightly diagonal line. And I'm just going to start where the eyeball begins on this side, and I'm going down a slight diagonal. Under the beak, I'm going to do a number 1 down. So I'm touching the end of my beak, doing a number 1 down, and then now connect it to that diagonal right here. Number 1 down and connect. From here, I'm going to go down, down, a number 1 with a slight curve to the left. So 1, almost like a J curve. Like I'm making a J, but not. Come down, and that's about 2 fingers down. We're forming the red breast. Now, if we think of a giant letter V on its side, so let's do this, watch. I'm going to come down, and then I'm going to connect them both. So I've come down from here, down, brought this line together, and they finally connected. So if I take this, look at this, I'm going to turn it to my side. I've almost made the letter V. You see that? But it's diagonal. So I've come down and connected. This is the robin's, look what we've just made. This is the robin's red breast. Now, from the red breast, here we go. I'm going to go up diagonal. Oh, I do want to put the wing in first. So I'm going to now curve around. Let's get the wing. Do another diagonal line, diagonal, and this is fairly straight. Diagonal down, and look where I'm pointing. I'm headed toward the corners here. These are my diagonals. They're heading toward the corner of my page. So once I do the diagonal, this is a wing. I'm going to curve. So this is a U curve or C curve. Look, there's a U. Or it's the letter C. And then I'm going to bring it. I'm going to start on this. This is the red section. I'm coming out and coming down. This is forming the wing. We can put some little lines in here. Diagonal, diagonal, and then get smaller as you go up. This is just little wing details. If you want to do some curves like C's, these are smaller wings, smaller wing feathers. C, 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 letter C. C curves. Now we're going to connect the back. So I'm curving. This is slightly, look at, I've slightly curved down and in. So I've come down. It's not very far from this robin, the red breast of the robin, and not very far from the wing. So I've come down now. It's a diagonal slight curve. And if you take your wing and kind of hop up a little bit diagonal, that's where you want to end. We're going to flare out now for the tail. So from my wing, I'm going to come diagonally straight. The tail feathers are pretty straight, and then they have a little bit of a curve on the end. And then this is going to flare out. If you curve this up and around, so I've gave a slight curve here, almost U-shaped. Look at my curve here. It's almost a U-shaped curve. And then I'm just going to connect it with a straight line to where I ended here. And this forms the tail of the bird. Now we can kind of see, let me see how your birds are coming out. Great, great. And I'll show the YouTube viewers in a minute. Now we can kind of see this, we can kind of see the tail forming. Now let's put a few little leg details in and we'll be done. From the red breast right here, we're going to come down, we're going to come off of this wing. I'm going to do a V. I come down and up to the body. That is like the letter V, down straight, up and connect to the wing. That's where my leg is going to come out. 2 straight lines down, very close together. Their legs are pretty skinny. And then we'll do some some of their feet here. Come diagonally out, over and back up. Diagonally, over, very skinny and close together. This is kind of like an inverted V, and do the same on the other side. He can be sitting on a log. That's what he is in the picture. And you could turn this into a log here. Let's make a log. Touch the foot, go diagonally to the right. Touch the foot, go diagonally to the right. Touch the other side of the foot, go diagonally to the right. This will give him something to sit on. Continue the back. Continue this diagonal line and go right off the page. Right off the page. That gives him a branch. And then you can decorate your branch later the way you want. Now let's get the other leg in. It's just a very skinny line coming down. And this is the leg that's behind the bird. So in perspective, when something is behind something else, it generally appears to be a little bit smaller. And so then 2 skinny lines down and go diagonally to the left, just like we did before with the other toe. And then go diagonally to the right. And there's your other side, sitting on the log. Now there is some little claws here. Let's get the log in the back now. We continue this diagonal line, and if you notice, I don't go on top of the bird because the bird is in front of my log. So come on down this way, and then we're going to put some claws in. So it's a curve for the claw, down and around, and then you don't see too much claw on that side. And if you look here, this claw is behind. And then you can go ahead and turn this into your own branched tree or log on the ground, and then you can add any of your other details. The one other detail I want to add is if you want to add just little U shapes or C shapes. This is the tummy of him, the red breast, and this just gives a little bit of detail for feather textures. And then the tail feathers have long feathers. Each part of the bird, and Audubon discovered that as he was doing all his observations, but each part of the bird has different kinds of feathers. Some are very long feathers for flight, and some are shorter feathers, tiny feathers, almost fluff, and they're called a down. Now, like I said, this is your bird, your picture. If you don't want to do it in the traditional robin colors, you don't have to. That's up to you. Let's see if I can get this focused. You don't have to. And we are going to be decorating it and adding some kind of an environment or a background to our bird. And I hope you enjoyed your little bird study with John James Audubon. And I'm going to show real quick, I'm going to take 2 examples as fast as I can to show my friends my, let me see, my 2nd graders. Let's see what they did today. And we are 8 years old. And here's a lovely bird. Here, and I just grabbed the ones from the front row because they were close to me. Here's one here. And another lovely 2nd grade bird. And I hope you enjoyed John James